Hi, welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, the show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. It is March 6th. I messed up last time. I said the actual day that I was recording and not the day that the podcast comes out. And that's how you're supposed to do it. So today is March 6th. Spring is kind of officially here. It usually isn't for many of us up in Canada at this time, but it's been a weird winter. Spring is here. It was a beautiful day. I guess technically yesterday when you guys are hearing this, but yeah, combine is done. Free agency tag deadline is done, and this is the free agency episode. We have a lot of guys to talk about. It's actually a pretty decent free agent class. Obviously, a lot of the top guys did get tagged. We'll talk about all of those guys. We'll talk about who didn't actually. I don't think we will talk about who didn't get tagged in the NFL Weekly Update because we'll talk about them because they're free agents now. But we'll talk about the guys who got tagged, the guys who got cut. Lots happened in this past NFL week, and obviously the combine happened. Lots to talk about from the combine, from this past week and last weekend, and I'll do that too. I will, so to lay out the framework of this episode, it'll be the NFL Weekly Update, followed by kind of the combine highlights by each position, and then I will finish it with kind of a free agency primer. Last year I kind of did like my top 25 free agents. This year I went position by position and I kind of listed the guys who I think are starter level guys, like good starters slash like good rotational pieces. I guess it doesn't work for all the positions. Like for pass rush, I had 14 guys listed down. And those 14 guys are starters or high end rotational pieces. But yeah, all the guys I'm going to name are guys who will be playing most downs on Sunday. I guess that's what I'm trying to boil it down to. So yeah, we'll go over that. Anything recent happening in my life? Not really, but things are. I got something in the works. I got something in the works at the moment. I don't want to say it now. Still fine tuning some details, but I will be very excited to share it once it does come out. But I guess let's start off with the NFL Weekly Update here. And starting off with news that we knew, but we also... God damn it, I wish I had the stats actually pulled up, because I gotta do this man his justice. There we go. And now I can highlight this, I can pause, and I can go and boom, and then I can start now, and then I can clip it out. So we're going to start it off with Jason Kelce is officially retired from the league. One of the best centers of all time, definitely the best center of this generation and my generation that I grew up watching. It was a hell of a career, and obviously I can highlight it with kind of how he got his start. He was started at Cincinnati. He was a walk-on running back, which I didn't fucking know. Could you imagine Jason Kelce running the ball at you? 6th round pick by the Eagles, and then Super Bowl champion, 4-time All-Pro, I think 6-time Pro Bowler. Has the record for Eagles for most consecutive starts, I think with like 156, I imagine. It's a hell of a career, and I mean, watching his press conference, the man was emotional, and I mean, for very good reasons. He left everything on the field, and he just loves the game and loves football so much. And the game will miss him back. I don't know what he has next up in his like career path. I'm sure that he'll kind of just take this year to hang out with his family and Kylie, and I forget their kids' names, but I should know. But after that, the man, like, as much as a goofball and he puts on the luchador mask, the man is smart. The man knows one thing and one thing really fucking well, and that's the game of football. he talks about it in such a simple but clear way and like detailed way. And I'm sure if he wants to be an analyst or if he wants to be up in the booth, uh, color commentating on games, something like Greg Olson does, sky's the limit for him. I think we all have all the options in the world. Hell of a career from one of the best guys. Can't wait to see what his speech in Canton was because his retirement speech was a tearjerker. I mean, I don't know. I guess I won't get into the details of the speech. This is going to be a long episode. We have a lot to talk about, and it is hot out. And obviously, I don't have the ACs running in my place yet, but the sun kind of like peeks around the corner of our building, and it's just coming in through like our balcony window now. And it's getting hot in here, so I'm going to get progressively more sweaty throughout this episode. So this should be a fun one. But let's keep moving on. Next note up, we got some extensions here. Mike Evans re-signs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2-year, $52 million deal. I think 36 of that guaranteed. Mike Evans stays a Buck, at least for the time being, at least for the short term, where they're kind of in a transition. I think they want to bring Mike back. I mean, he's hopefully to be a Buck for life. They want to bring Baker back. But I'm happy that Mike gets the money that he deserves and he gets to keep living in Tampa Bay, place where he started his whole career. Who knows if he'll finish it there, but it is what it is right now. And the other extension we got was Dalton Schultz signs a 3-year, $36 million deal, so averaging around to about $12 million per season. That kind of puts him in the top 10 tight ends based on salary, and I think that's pretty fair for Dalton Schultz. I think that he is arguably a top 10 tight end. I mean, he's solid. It is what it is. He's good in space, not a good blocker, has some crucial drops, but I was going to say shows up when it matters, but also kind of not really. But he is a solid, good tight end, gets you yards, and also keeps that continuity with CJ Stroud to kind of have his emergency option a lot of the time in Schultz. So deserving money. Good for Dalton Schultz for getting that money. One more re-signing here. Emmanuel Mosley signs a 1-year deal back with the Lions. Obviously, he tore his ACL early into last year after coming back from an ACL injury. So hopefully this gives him a chance to just get on his feet. Good on the Lions for kind of being like, we like you. We're going to give you an opportunity to succeed here. So hopefully he takes it. Good for him for getting that money. And now we got a bunch of tags. A bunch of tags here. Antoine Winfield back to the Bucks makes sense. Kyle Duggar back to the Patriots makes sense. Jalen Johnson tagged. Michael Pittman tagged. And Josh Allen also tagged. And then Brian Burns also tagged. A couple of those are franchise tags. A couple of those are transitional tags. The difference is on the transitional tag or the non-exclusive tag, I think teams can, this is what Lamar was placed on last year, where teams can still offer a contract, and that team, whatever team has a chance to match that offer, bring that player back on that deal, or that other team gives them 2 first-round picks. For Lamar, should have been easy, but teams are stupid. They didn't do it. But yeah. But that Brian Burns is... the Panthers have done some unbelievable bag fumbling as of late and bad asset management, and now Scott Fitterer is gone. One of the worst GM tenures we've had in a long time here, but Brian Burns was offered... the Rams offered the Panthers 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns, which would have been the 2024 first-round pick and a 2025 first-round pick. And the Panthers said, no, we're going to keep him in-house. This is going to be like our guy. And now they're going to get pennies on the dollar for him. Franchises know that this isn't a working environment for them. Brian Burns still very young, I think 25 years old at this point. I think the Panthers will still garner like a first-round pick for him. They should anyways. But yeah, this is just kind of encapsulates this era of the Panthers, where can't get out of their own way essentially, and this is just kind of another one Or yeah, it would have been great having Brian Burns or getting those two first for Brian Burns, and now hopefully you get a first, and it'll probably be a late first, but it is what it is. And before we get into some other stuffs and some cuts, the one of the big things that dropped over this past week was NFL team report cards. I'm a little late to it because I think that these team report cards literally dropped the morning that my last episode dropped. So people have heard of all of the things that have gone around, like the Dolphins having the best franchise to work for, or that the players love anyways. It's we're number one in something, woohoo. But yeah, the other, but there's obviously always a couple of notable, like, oh, that's a concern. Why are teams doing this? And I just got a couple to point out. The Commanders obviously finished at the very, very bottom as they did last season. And hopefully, new ownership will change those things because one of the issues that Commanders had this year was sewage leaks in the locker room. That's a fun one. That's a really, really fun one. But what do we expect from the Commanders? They are just a dumpster fire of a franchise. But hopefully, Michael Rubin can turn that around. We will see. Other things, the Chargers charging their players to bring their kids in for like their daycare services that they offer on game day. And obviously, the joke going around, it's like, oh well, the Chargers, they employed Philip Rivers and Antonio Rogers Cromartie. They had to start charging because obviously, if you don't know, I think those between both those guys, they have 24 kids. But yeah, which I mean, that's just I don't understand charging because like at the end of the day, I think that off like charging your players that much, it's an extra probably like 10, 20 grand extra in the Chargers pockets like per year. Who does that help? No one really. It's just kind of cheap on the owner, very cheap on the owner. If you're asking me, the Bengals don't provide lunch to their players. Most teams offer lunch 3 meals a day basically, and you can go to the cafeteria whenever. I think the Bengals only offer like 3 meals a week kind of thing. So yeah, asking your players to pack a lunch instead of having food ready and food that like I don't know the team nutritionists can all be behind and being like, yep, this is like good. I know another weird one. The Bengals are also really really cheap. And then the other one, the Chiefs. The Chiefs finished very low on that list, and because Clark Hunt, the Chiefs owner, is apparently a notorious cheapskate. I guess last year when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl versus the Eagles, the players were promised like a new locker room going into like next year, and instead of stools, they got chairs with backs on them in their stalls. And basically, Clark Hunt blamed it on, well, you guys made it to the Super Bowl, so we didn't have enough time to like change like out the locker room. Complete bullshit, and also just like a slap in the face to your players. Like they won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. Do something for your team. Like you can't. This is like the most money your team is ever going to get in like a 5 year span. More than likely, I mean, unless Pat Mahomes just keeps fucking winning, I hope not. But I don't know. I just like if these billion-dollar franchises should be doing everything to make lives of their players the most comfortable possible. That money should be going back into the organization and the team. And a lot of teams are cheapskates. And I saw someone boil it down to teams that were inherited, so like passed down from the really really old people who own the team, and then go into like that next generation, versus like franchises that were like purchased recently. And it was far and away the worst franchises run in the league were the ones that were inherited down from parents to sons, where now it's the Nepo franchises basically, where that is the source of their family's income is the team. So reinvesting that money isn't, they want to keep that money and have their own lifestyles and stuff, but it's not seen as an investment, I guess, for them. But either way, but yeah, teams like The Chiefs scored low. Like, the only thing the Chiefs scored well in was Andy Reid, because Andy Reid is awesome. Same thing for the Steelers. Mike Tomlin is the only reason that they kind of scored higher than they did. But we can move on from the team report cards here. Next up, we have a hiring. I think the last hiring of the cycle, probably. Niners promote Nick Sorensen to their defensive coordinator position. He was the defensive pass game coordinator for the Niners, so internal promotion for them. But they are also bringing in Brandon Staley to be assistant head coach. Not a bad move for them. It's the system that they want to run, and Sorensen knows how to run that system, and he's seen that system operated on a very good level. But Staley coming in as a guy who has run very good defenses and hopefully can bring in some mix and just kind of give some feedback. Because he's obviously, like, he knows what he's doing. It didn't work out with the Chargers, but he was hoping that he can get his hands on things and help, at least. And then the other hiring that they did was former Seahawks linebacker KJ Wright has signed on to be their assistant linebackers coach, I believe. So 3 hirings there for the Niners. We'll get into the cuts now. Starting off with the Broncos have cut Russell Wilson for a $85 million dead cap hit. That is more than the number 2 and 3 dead cap hits combined. Unbelievable blunder by the Broncos in this one. And I just don't get it. I don't understand how their general manager, George Paton, I think it's Payton, but it's spelled Patton either way. I don't understand how George Paton still has a job. It's mind-boggling. So, obviously, Russ spent the last 2 years there. Those final 2 years were on his last Seahawks deal. He got a 5-year extension before he even played a snap for the Broncos. And that whole deal is just gone now, and that's why that dead cap hit is so fucking high. Yeah, and I guess, like, I'm not really faulting the trade. I don't think the trade was that awful, because at the end of the day, they thought they were getting a top 10 quarterback play in Russ, so giving away 2 firsts and some seconds and some players for a guy who you thought was going to be a top 10 quarterback, not bad. Giving him a 5-year extension before he even plays, while he still has 2 years left on the deal, that's fucking terrible. So yeah, Russell Wilson hits the open market. I don't know who's going to pay him. We'll talk about it more in a bit, but I think Russell Wilson is not even a top 5 quarterback on the free agent market right now. So I guess we'll see, but just all-time blunder, all-time one of the worst. It has to be the worst contract. He didn't even play that contract. He didn't even see a single snap. He was cut before he hit his 5-year extension. Unbelievable blunder by the Broncos. Let's keep going, though. The Seahawks have made a trio of moves. They have cut safety Jamal Adams, safety Quandre Diggs, and tight end Will Dissly. The Will Dissly one doesn't really matter. He was way too high of a cap hit for only playing like 40% of their snaps. Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, though, going into last year, they were seen as their 2 starting safeties. Jamal Adams gets hurt again. Julian Love steps up. They seemingly like him. And Quandre Diggs is good, but again, I think that Mike Macdonald wants to reshape this team. I don't think he sees this team as a Super Bowl contender. He's already been very iffy on Geno Smith's future talk. And I think this will be a retooling year for the Seahawks, gearing into more of a rebuild after next year. I think they'll still push for the playoffs in the NFC next season, but contending, definitely not. And yeah, Adams and Diggs are 2, I think, still good players in free agency. Adams obviously has like the injury bug. I think he's only 28, which is kind of just wild to say, but he's had the injury bug, but he is a blitzer. He is blitz boy. You get in the pressure of the quarterback, he can still do that. You can put him in pass coverage, not the best, but yeah, 2 more good safeties hit the open market. We'll keep talking about some cuts. Another safety that hit the open market, Eagles cut Kevin Byard. Obviously, trading for him didn't really work to kind of help out that really bad Eagles secondary last year. Eagles also kind of in a retooling phase of their playoff window right now. So Kevin Byard, another good safety, hits the market. And another safety, the very good safety market. If you can't really get this, can't really get what or I don't know. I'll just keep going. Another safety, Saints cut Marcus May, former Jet, went to the Saints. Got hurt. Still a good player. Not I don't think as good. Not as good as a Kevin Byard or Quandre Diggs or even a Jamal Adams, but solid starter level safety in this league. So I guess we will see what his market looks like. The Dolphins have cut linebacker Jerome Baker. Was just kind of one of those. He's getting too much money. He's solid, but he was not worth, I think, like the $12 million cap hit that he was going to be for us this year. Solid player, good off-ball blitzing linebacker, but that's kind of about it. So again, I loved usering him whenever I played Madden. I haven't played that game in a while because it's so bad, but a good player for us. Been with us for a while, but just kind of that was the end, and it's unfortunate. Panthers have cut Hayden Hurst and plan to cut Dante Jackson or trade him. I don't think anyone's trading for Dante Jackson, so I think they'll just cut him. Obviously, Hayden Hurst had like the head neck issues during the season, and I think his career is actually like done. And Dante Jackson, just I mean, solid corner, very fast corner. Shouldn't have like top end market, but he's a guy. He's a guy. The Vikings cut Alexander Madison, just another one of these running backs to hit the market. Don't really have to spend much time on that. The Patriots cut J.C. Jackson. Understandably, he has not been good since he left the Pats to go to the Chargers, and then that injury. He was hoping that he'd go back to the Pats and he'd kind of revive some of his career. We'll see what his market looks like. Probably not the best. The Commanders cut Logan Thomas, Charles Leno, and Nick Gates. Logan Thomas, solid tight end, injury history. Charles Leno, very solid starter for basically his entire career. I think his wife on Twitter hinted at potential retirement, so we will see there. And Nick Gates, after 1 year getting his 3-year deal, is now out the door back in free agency. Just, again, solid, capable NFL players that are now available in free agency, essentially. And one more cut here. The Jags have cut Foley, Fudakasi. Basically 2 hours after wishing him a happy birthday, the Jags cut him. And I obviously know that those tweets on like the Jags official accounts are all scheduled tweets for when their players have birthdays. Like it makes sense, but just the optics of happy birthday Foley, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 hours later being like, oh, we have announced that we are releasing like, very funny optics. But yeah. Also the Bills traded offensive lineman Ryan Bates to the Bears for a 5th-round pick. Ryan Bates, again, solid interior offensive lineman. Will get a chance to start for the Bears. Bears getting a piece for that offensive line that they desperately need. Yeah, that does it for the NFL Weekly Update. This is going to be a long one. And trust me, next week is going to be twice as long, but that's mainly going to be because it's going to be free agency and we'll have lots of new signings and lots of things to talk about. But yeah, I guess let's get right into the Combine highlights here. The Combine this year was a good one. Obviously, we saw some record breakers, and we'll talk about that shortly. But how I'm going to do this is kind of how I did it for my Combine preview episode, where I'm just going to go position by position, talk about some guys who were, basically just talk about the highlights of each position group as we go. So we'll start off with the quarterbacks. Obviously, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels didn't decide to throw. Jaden Daniels decided to just not measure at the Combine, which is a weird one. I think Caleb, because Caleb Williams definitely got measured, but he decided to not go through his medicals, because he's like, why do I have to give my medicals to all 32 teams? like only 5 or 6 of you have a chance of drafting me, and really it's only one team that matters in the end, which is the Bears. But yeah, Daniel's not weighing in is kind of a weird one. I do wonder what he is weighing at right now because I think it's listed that he's like 6'4", 204. Very, very thin frame for a guy like that. But yeah, the QB discourse is absolutely wild right now. But yeah, the highlight for the QB class, other than JJ McCarthy's 3-cone drill, blazing fast. I wasn't impressed by JJ McCarthy this weekend. Whole other story. But I don't really have to get into that right now. There's much more draft talk to talk about JJ McCarthy. But Joe Milton was the winner from these quarterbacks, and it's exactly what I said in the combine preview. He can throw out the fucking gym. His arm strength is incredible. I think he got listed as so he threw the ball 73.3 yards. The longest throw in the NFL over the last 7 years is Josh Allen to Gabe Davis, which was 69.3. His arm talent is insane, but it's too bad that if you watched the Senior Bowl and watched his college career, he can't hit the broadside of a barn with it on most plays. But yeah, people love Joe Milton because they see a guy. It's like, he's got the tools. I can work with that. Joe Milton's a day 3 player. Don't be confused. And if he were to be taken on day 2, I would seriously question whoever is in charge of that team and their football decisions. Because, again, it's not like he's super young and he has the talent. Nah, this dude, we know who Joe Milton is at this point. Crazy, crazy, crazy arm. That's it. That's just it at this point. But yeah, those were the quarterbacks. We'll go to the running backs here. We got some slow times. I think Audric Esteem out of Notre Dame ran a 4.7. But let's not forget that Kyron Williams, his, I think, probably former teammate at Notre Dame, maybe not, also ran a 4.7. And Kyron Williams took the league on by storm last year. So 40 times, again, not the be-all, end-all, but we got Trey Benson, my number 1 running back. He ran a 4.39. Braylon Allen chose not to run, which is unfortunate. We'll see what he runs at his at his pro day. But again, the guy that I highlighted to watch in this running back group, Isaac Guerendo out of Louisville, crushed it. Ended up as the second ranked running back using the RAS scores, which is relative athletic scores. Which is a stat made by a man, I think Kent Lee Plott is his name. Sorry if I got that wrong, but basically he takes all these testing scores and all their metrics, plugs them into his relative athletic score thing, and it gives them a grade. And Isaac Guerendo ended up being the number 2 running back, I think out of like 1,800 and something running backs who were eligible. He tested out the gym. So as I was saying, so he ran a 4.3340. That was the fastest for the running backs. Had a 41.5-inch vertical, which I think was also first among the running backs. Also just insane vertical. And he did that at 6 feet, 220. He's going up draft boards. I'm expecting him to be like an early day 3 guy. So like rounds 4 or 5 is kind of what I'm assuming for him at this point, because his athletic profile is just unbelievable, and I think that he is kind of an untapped resource there. We will see. Let's move on to the wide receivers though. Obviously, the Texas wide receivers were the big show, the big draw, and obviously Xavier Worthy breaking the combine record, breaking John Ross's record at a 4.22. It is now a 4.21 held by Xavier Worthy. But he wasn't my winner of this combine. Like, obviously, he broke the combine record, and that's fucking incredible. He also did it weighing 5'11", 165, which is just like, how are you that skinny and are about to play in the NFL? And this isn't like a Tank Dell thing, because Tank Dell's 5'8". Tank Dell's 5'8", 170 something. Xavier Worthy needs to pack on some pounds, and I think that he came in at that weight, so he could beat the record, which is awesome. But definitely needs to add some weight. But no, AD Mitchell, his teammate, uh, ended up running a 4.34 at 6'4", 200 and I think 11 pounds or something like that. Putting him in kind of like a class of DK and Calvin Johnson, of like guys that size to move and run under a 4.35. So yeah, he did well. Brian Thomas Jr. also came in at like 6'4", 209, ran a 4.33. So those guys obviously really, really impressed. Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. did not run. Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina, 6'1", 220, running a 4.39 is also just insane. But honestly, I think the winner of the wide receiver class, which is wild because I don't even think he needed to really test that great for it to show up, but it was Washington receiver Rome Odunze. I think a lot of people going into the combine were like, okay, this guy's a good athlete, but he has the like he can catch in traffic, he has the routes. Like you don't need to be a great athlete when you're just like a natural separator route technician. You can catch in traffic, like boom. He put on an excellent combine, and I don't have the stats in front of me, unfortunately, which is bad. I'll try to look those up quickly here. But talking about his relative athletic score, I think that he came in as like a top 100 receiver out of like those 1,800 guys. So like elite. When a lot of people were expecting like good athleticism, he came in and delivered with elite athleticism on top of this guy's an excellent route runner. Holy shit, his contested catches unbelievable. He is my wide receiver number 2 in this class. Obviously, we know Neighbors is excellent, and we know Marvin Harrison Jr. Rome Odunze is just like exactly who you want in an NFL wide receiver. He does literally everything you want, and on top of being an excellent athlete, I got his combine stuff up here as it slowly loads, but he had a 4.45 40 at 10 1.52 10-yard split, a 39-inch vertical, 10.4 broad. His agility drill's really good. Like he crushed it. He absolutely crushed it. And I guess the last thing, Ladd McConkey, 4.39 40. So the comparisons to the slower white wide receivers kind of need to stop because this man can play on the outside. He can also play in the slot, but Ladd McConkey is a number 1 receiver. And yeah, I guess the last thing for the wide receivers that I need to mention here is so Keon Coleman, who is still one of my top receivers in this class, despite his slow 40 time he ran in the 4.6s. Because what mattered for him was so he had a great 10-yard split, which shows that his short, quick burst is there and his explosiveness is there. And when running the gauntlet drill, which is the one where you catch, flip, catch, and you kind of run down the straight line, catching the balls as they go. He was the fastest wide receiver in that drill. People would say like, oh, well, he's running a drill. He's not like running in game, but he maintained, I think, his 20-mile-per-hour speed while doing that drill the entire time because he is confident in his hands. Where someone like Troy Franklin, who fallen down my draft boards here, but someone like Troy Franklin was weaving in and out, and despite I think he ran a 4.41 40, he was consistently 4 to 3 miles per hour slower than Keon Coleman while running that drill, because that has how confident Keon Coleman is with his hands, that he knows that he can run his full speed the entire time, and it doesn't matter where someone like Troy Franklin is worried about and isn't confident either way. I'm getting too far into it. Keon Coleman's speed is not an issue. Obviously, the people see the 40 and are like, ooh. His play speed is what matters, and his play speed shows up, and his play speed, it showed up in the next-gen stats of when they were running those drills, because he topped out as one of the fastest receivers while running those drills, most of the time anyways, which is amazing for Keon. So I think he will still be a top 40 pick in this draft. Yeah, the wide receiver is just insane. Tight ends, Brock Bowers did not test, which was very unfortunate. But the winner of the tight ends was Theo Johnson out of Penn State. Penn State just pumps out athletes year after year, even though their college football team is consistently just like okay. They always pump out these monster athletes who I guess they don't use. Like especially a tight end, like a guy like Mike Gesicki. Last year they had Brenton Strange, who was a very good athlete. This year Theo Johnson, and Theo Johnson is the only tight end in combine history to post a sub 4.640 and post a vert over 39 inches, weighing over 255 pounds. Obviously incredible. And his stats for the combine: 4.59 40, 39.5 inch vert, and all of that coming in at 6'6", 259. The best athlete in the tight end class. Yeah, on to the offensive lineman here. And, I could talk about Amarius Bims and he's a monster and how well he moved at that size, or a guy like Joe Alt coming in at 6'9" and him moving like this. But we all know that these guys are good. I got to talk about something different. And my two winners of this group were Frank Crum and Tanner Bortolini. Frank Crum out of Wyoming. I think Bortolini is out of Wisconsin, but I could be wrong. And the reason why these men won the combine, in my opinion, was their wonderful heads of hair. Yeah. Frank Crum, the not bleach blonde, but the light blonde curly mullet. Bortolini also rocking the mullet. And also they had very good combines. I think that Tanner Bortolini is on one of my drives because, or one of my lists of like late round guys that I want to get, because how I talked about last week about the short shuttle times for offensive linemen, where if they get under, I think it's like 4, 5, 7 or something like that, like that's a very good indicator that they could be a very good NFL player based off the other stats and mumbo jumbo, whatever. So Bortolini hit that. Yeah, but it's the hair. It's the hair for me. These guys looked fantastic while running. Yeah. Let's keep going though. For the interior defensive line guys, it was kind of what we expected. Byron Murphy absolutely crushed it. He's a monster, athletic freak. Chris Jenkins crushed it, athletic freak. T'Vondre Sweat, mammoth of the man, 266, running a 5.27 40, which is very, very good for that size. I kind of went through the last 20 years of combines, and I think only one other interior defensive lineman at that size ran kind of as fast as he did. So very impressive stuff for him. But no, the winner of the combine for the interior defensive lineman was Florida State's Braden Fisk. Crushed it. He started off, he ran his 40, and as soon as he crossed the line, he did the, oh yeah, quoting the Kool-Aid Man, obviously. But he had the 5th best 40 time since 2013 with a 4.78 40, and the 8th best broad jump in that time with a 9.9, and he did this weighing at 6'6", 292. A bit shorter arms, but when he's that explosive, he gets there quicker. He makes up for his shorter arms. Yeah, so another guy that's just kind of creeping up draft boards here. On the edge, I talked about last week where it's these 3 guys who are clumped together, and I'm not really sure how to rank them. Laiatu Latu tested better than I thought. Another guy who I thought, okay, he has good athleticism, but not great athleticism. Turns out he has great athleticism, not elite athleticism, which is awesome for him. Jared Verse ended up being, again, it shows up. He's a very, very good athlete, especially at his size. But Dallas Turner is the guy who has edged away just a little bit from the other two right now. Coming in a little smaller than I expected at 6'2", 247, but his arms are long and he has the explosiveness to get that length basically no matter what. But ran a 4.47 and a 40.5 inch vert and a 10.7 broad. And again, at 6'2", 247. Absolutely electric numbers for him. And it is enough to separate him as my number one edge in this class. And I think it will probably stay that way. He had a killer combine, and the other guy who we have to talk about is Chop Robinson, who I thought was probably going to have the best combine, but Chop ended up having the fastest 40-yard split ever for an edge over 250 pounds. I think he came in at 255. But yeah, so his 10-yard split was a 154. And when we talked about, again, last week, where a 1.6 10-yard split is an elite time, 154 is absolutely incredible. So hats off to Chop Robinson. Just another insane athlete out of Penn State. We'll keep going on to the linebackers. Not really much to talk about, honestly. Kind of Edge Cooper did what he needed to do, but Peyton Wilson was the big winner, 4.4 340 at 6'3", 230. He was disappointed. He wanted to crack into the 4.3s, I guess something that he was doing while training. And yeah, it's a big boost to his draft stock too. Obviously, the big concern for him is he's never stayed healthy, and that is a big issue. But Peyton Wilson, one of the best athletes, I think an all-state wrestler too. And coaches love to see that. I mean, they put his wrestling film on kind of like as the combine was going, and all the coaches were like, damn, it's impressive. It's impressive. Wrestling's fucking hard. And to finish off the last two position groups, at defensive back, again, we had some very fast runners as we expected. Quinyon Mitchell, who rose in my draft boards, is a top 15 player for me. He ran a 4.33, I think at like 6 feet, 195. So very good time for him. Very, very good time. But he was outdone by Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. I knew he was going to run fast, but he ran fast. 4.27 40, and then he got hurt. I thought he was going to honestly run a faster time next time, but unfortunate. He came in a little thin, obviously, but I think, again, another one of these guys who wanted to run a very fast 40, but I think he came in at like 6'2", 178, probably good for him to put on another 10 pounds just to be safe, but absolutely blazing 40. Hopefully he's not hurt. I don't think he is really hurt. And then the winner of the days for the safeties was safety Tyler Owens. And he started off kind of his combine thing with a very interesting interview with the press where he basically said he doesn't believe in space. He doesn't believe in the stars and the planets and stuff. And I guess it's good for a defensive back being like, I don't believe in space, because like that means you lock down your guy. And coaches know it's like, yeah, that man hates space. He's going to be good for me. Obviously, fucking ridiculous to say that, especially when you can fucking jump as well as he does. Like, he should be able to see space. He had a 41-inch vertical. He had a 12.2 vert. 41-inch vertical, 12.2 broad jump. That 12.2 broad jump is best for the second all-time at the Combine. Byron Jones, number one, obviously broke the all-time record in broad jump. And he didn't end up running the 40. That was it for his testing. He was supposed to run a very, very fast 40 time and ended up pulling up just a little bit. But yeah, that does it for the Combine highlights. And now we got a whole free agency to talk about here. So basically what I just did, I'm going to run through... Actually, I'm going to do it differently. No, I'm not. So we're going to go position by position. I'm going to talk about some of these higher end free agent guys. I don't think I'm really going to go with like team fits or team needs, but I'm just going to talk about these guys and how I still think that they're good players in this league, essentially. So we'll start off with the quarterbacks here, and the top QBs available: Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett, Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, Tyrod Taylor, and former Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley. And obviously, someone like Justin Fields is obviously in the mix, not a free agent, but he's a part of that QB market, QB shuffle. And yeah, there are some good names there that are available, and there are a lot of QB needy teams. Obviously, we know that three of them at the top of the draft should be selecting their quarterbacks of the future, with that being the Bears, the Commanders, and the Patriots. The Patriots are a bit of a wild card right now, but we'll see. And then there's teams like the Vikings, who obviously Kirk is a free agent. They're hoping to bring him back. A team like the Falcons, a team like the Steelers, a team like the Raiders, a team like the Broncos, all needing starters kind of just in the short term in general. And I think a lot of these guys are going to have chances to start almost immediately. I think it's going to be kind of waiting for the dominoes to fall. I'm pretty sure the Bucks are going to bring back Baker. I don't know why Baker would want to leave there. I also don't think Baker's market is like it's good, but it's not insane. And I think the bigger domino of the two, let's say Tampa Bay is getting Baker. The big domino is Kirk Cousins, because I think that once Kirk Cousins decides where he wants to go, and I think it's between the Vikings, obviously, where he's been playing and the system he knows and where his family lives, versus the Falcons, which I think his wife is from Atlanta, or at least the Atlanta area. So that'll be the big decision. And once Kirk goes, we'll see guys like Jacoby and Gardner and Ty God and Tannehill kind of fall into place. Ryan Tannehill's maybe a sneaky spot for the Arthur Smith offensive coordinator coached Steelers potentially here. But yeah, Kirk is the big fish, obviously, but I still think that guys like Minshew and Jacoby and Russ are capable starters anyways, not guys who, again, you put the future into them, but solid vets who can start for you. Again, we just need starters in this league at the end of the day. Move on to the running backs here. It's a good year to need a running back in free agency. We got Saquon, we got Derrick Henry, we got Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Singletary, Ezekiel Elliott. There's a few other guys that I didn't list too. However, as good as this free agency market is for the running backs, no one also really needs a running back. The draft happens every year. There's always good running backs that come in that people don't expect to really do that great, and that's why the running back market is in the mud, because they get paid pennies on the dollar, unfortunately. But yeah, I guess we will see. I think Saquon is going to have a pretty decent market. I think that he will end up getting a pretty good contract. I think that Derrick Henry might ring chase. People seem to be fitting him with the Ravens. I think that would be an excellent move for Derrick Henry to go there, and I think that that run game would be tremendous between him and Keaton Mitchell. But the rest of the guys, like Josh Jacobs, again, might go back to the Raiders, you would hope, but it's going to be tough because a lot of these guys like the running backs and the running backs that they have at very cheap numbers instead of, oh, I'm going to spend $10, $12 million on a running back who I can just replace his production more than likely with a fifth round guy. Obviously, a bunch of hypotheticals there, but if you need a running back, there will be good talent available for fractions of the cost, which is always great. But yeah, we'll keep going here. Wide receivers, obviously, a bunch of guys have been tagged, like T. Higgins, like Michael Pittman, like I think I'm forgetting one more that was supposed to hit the open market, but Mike Evans isn't a free agent. Obviously, he resigned, not tagged, different. But Leeds wide receiver like a little bit thin. So we got the top end guys like Calvin Ridley. That's the top end guy, unfortunately. Who Calvin Ridley, not the best year for Jacksonville after coming back from his injury / gambling suspension, but still proved that he is a very good receiver still. Hollywood Brown, more of a number 2 receiver than a number 1. Curtis Samuel, again, more of a number two, high end number three guy. And then we get into kind of the guys who are number threes on most teams here. Tyler Boyd, Kendrick Bourne, Noah Brown, Darnell Mooney, Gabe Davis, Josh Reynolds, DJ Chark, Braxton Berrios, KJ Osborne. And again, there's a few other guys I left off, but I get like that's kind of what we're dealing with for wide receivers. Luckily, this is a fantastic wide receiver group. I think I have close to 10 receivers ranked in my top 50 players right now. Very good year to need a wide receiver, but there are still some very capable vets available in free agency. And I think, yeah, Ridley's going to garner some very good attention because I think that he still can be a low end wide receiver one for a team. Hollywood should get some money. Curtis Samuel should get some money. And then after that, it's kind of like, where are these other guys going who they can fill in? They can be a number two receiver for the teams, but most of them are wide receiver threes in this league. But they're all good. They're all good, capable, solid players. And I guess, yeah, the wide receiver market, I guess, like team wise, it seems like there's teams like the Panthers who just like need any capable receiver to come to the team. Then there's a team like the Seahawks who they got DK, they got Tyler Lockett, they got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who just have like a plethora of wide receivers. And I feel like that's kind of the ratio. It's rather you have like two really, really good receivers or you have absolutely no one. So yeah, so we'll see what the market is for some of these guys. At tight end, it's a little bit of slim pickings here. Hunter Henry, Gerald Everett, Noah Fant, Logan Thomas, Jonnu Smith, Mike Gesicki, Adam Troutman, Brock Wright, Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly. Hunter Henry, good, solid, dependable player. So that's about it. Like again, he's a good tight end, but is he going to garner a lot of money? Will he garner a lot of interest? Because I think that he is a very solid player. Honestly, wouldn't be a bad thing if someone like Miami brought him in. Because he's just, again, he's solid across the board, but he's an elevated version of what someone like Durham Smythe does. Where Durham Smythe is just block first, can give you a couple catches, but Hunter Henry is an actual receiving threat on top of a capable blocker. Wouldn't mind him at a decent price for the Dolphins, but I'm not really trying to spend money on the best tight end in free agency. But that's just me. Because if Dalton Schultz got $12 million a year, I don't know why Hunter Henry couldn't get something close to that. Yeah, and these other guys, like guys who will be starting or be number two tight ends across the league, or have the opportunities to start, but definitely after Hunter Henry, guys like Gerald Everett, Noah Fant, Logan Thomas, blah blah blah, will get less than 10 million, probably sitting somewhere in that like $5 to $8 million range for the lot of them, which not bad. We got some athletes available with Everett, Fant. I mean, all of the guys I basically listed are athletes. I mean, obviously they're NFL players, but like very good athletes. Either way, I'm rambling. I don't need to talk about free agent tight ends that often. For the guards, pretty good group at least at the top. Robert Hunt, Michael Wenyu, Laken Tomlinson, Kevin Dodson, Andres Pete, Cody Whitehair, Kevin Zeitler, Ezra Cleveland. There's going to be some silly money thrown around in free agency because of this massive $30 million cap raise right now, and a team like the Dolphins who are letting Robert Hunt walk, where if you look on Spotrac, it's his estimated market value is $16 million a season, and that's why Miami can't afford that. There are some capable guards that I didn't list who will come in at half that price and hopefully replicate similar production anyways. Obviously, it's a tough ask, but it is what it is, and that's what happens when you have a good team with good players who are already on contracts and have young players who you drafted who are also very good who you need to re-sign at a certain point. But the guard market is strong. It's honestly a fairly strong offensive line market in general. And again, like I said with the draft is very O-line heavy. Free agency also looking that way. It's a good year to need to fix the offensive line. That's why I'm not stressed about the Dolphins. There are offensive linemen available. You just got to go out and grab a couple. It is what it is. For the centers, Connor Williams, Brian Allen, Aaron Brewer, Mason Cole, and Andre James. Connor Williams is kind of the standout of that group for obvious reasons because he was a Dolphin first and foremost. But he was playing at a Pro Bowl level before his ACL injury. I'm pretty sure it was an ACL injury. But he's not looking to re-sign until he is healthier. And lucky for him, the Dolphins come into some more cap space post June 1st after that Xavier Howard cut. And it'll be lovely if he would come back for a few years being our center. And we would only need two positions to fill at guard. But those are the centers, all capable, all guys who should be starting on teams next season. I should have added Nick Gates to that list as well. And the offensive tackles, little less strong here, but we got Tyron Smith, Jonah Williams, and then guys like Charles Leonard, Chuks Okafor, Trent Brown, George Fant, Dwayne Brown, and Jermaine Illuminor. Tyron Smith is obviously the belle of the ball with this group here, still playing at an all-pro level at 33. Obviously, has had his injury history these last few years, but people will see, like, again, this is kind of like a Trent Williams when he hit the open market. It's hard to let, like, Tyron Smith is, when he is healthy and he is playing, he is one of the best left tackles in the NFL, and someone's going to give him a fucking shit ton of money. I don't know who it's going to be. Lots of teams have a lot of money. But yeah, Jonah Williams, capable tackle, solid tackle. Bengals are letting him walk. And then the rest of the guys are just older, a lot of them, but just solid, dependable guys who if healthy, they can start for you in a pinch. Obviously, you don't want it to be their be-all, end-all, or you want to have kind of like a plan if they were to get hurt instead of them, but solid tackles available. Now, the interior defensive line is where the real heavy hitters are. And I'd say just the defensive line in general, and I'm including edge in that mix here. But we'll talk about the interior guys. Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, Za'Darius Smith. Ended up reading the wrong. Okay. Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, DJ Reader, Leonard Williams, Fletcher Cox, Daquan Jones, Sheldon Rankins, Grover Stewart, Javon Kinlaw, and Tim Settle. All the guys available for the defensive tackle, interior defensive line market here. Obviously, Chris Jones is the big one. We will see if he does leave Kansas City. I sincerely doubt it. I think that they are working very, very hard to bring him back. We'll see what that number settles at. But one of the younger people and one of the people that I am most sad to see leave off this team and to hit free agency is Christian Wilkins. It sucks because Christian Wilkins is one of the next jerseys I wanted to buy as a Dolphins fan, but I'm like, nope, let's just see this extension before I pull the trigger on the jersey. And it absolutely sucks, but I kind of already said it when talking about Robert Hunt. This is what happens when you were already paying a bunch of talented people on this roster on top of having to pay other younger talent for next season. It's a casualty of having a good roster. It is what it is. Wilkins will get top-end money wherever he decides to sign, and they're going to get a team guy, an absolute vocal leader in the locker room, and a pest. I'm not looking forward to playing against him. He knows how to get in the other team's head, and he knows how to get into their head well. Ask any Bills fan. He's going to be missed, but again, we got Zach Seiler, who paying him probably half as what he's worth He has similar production to Wilkins. Obviously, that production will drop because Wilkins does take away a lot of the pressure off of him. But like we got to pay Holland, Waddle, and Phillips next year, or around next year. Basically, Tua's going to get his extension, but the Tua extension actually helps us for cap wise this year. It's just it is what it is. Sometimes you have to let good players walk. And I wish him the best. He has a fan in me for the rest of his life. Yeah, that. Do I need to talk about other guys here? DJ Reader, Leonard Williams. DJ Reader obviously got hurt for the Bengals, and then their defense took a hit. He is going to be very hard to replace for that team, and he's also going to get a big bag. He's obviously a little bit older here. This would be his second big kind of free agency bag for him, and someone like Leonard Williams, who has made quite a bit of money over his career so far, but didn't work out for the Seahawks. He hits the open market. He's also going to get very good money. On to the edge guys now. This is where there's a lot of guys here. There's a lot of guys, and could have been more. There could have been Brian Burns. There could have been Josh Allen. Obviously, those teams were smart to tag them, but we still got some good ones, starting with Danielle Hunter for the Vikings, Chase Young, Zadarius Smith, Leonard Floyd, Jadeveon Clowney, Josh Uche, Jonathan Grenard, AJ Epinesa, Marcus Davenport, Bryce Huff, Caleb Chason, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Randy Gregory. I said it at the top of the show. All 14 of those guys, and I'm pretty sure it's 14, I'm not going to go count again. All of those guys are starters or high-end rotational guys who you put them in. You know what I mean by that. I don't need to explain myself. If you need edge defenders, this is the year. And lucky for Miami, we don't really need starting edge defenders, but our two guys have had major injuries towards the end of the season, so they will not be back, both of them, for the start of the year. So we need some replacement talent, and there is a lot of guys to be able to do that. And I know I'm just kind of talking about Miami's free agent needs for the most part. It is what it is. I'm just mostly giving you names that are good. I'm not going to talk about all of them because that would be a 3-hour podcast. But lots of good edge guys available. Very, very strong edge free agency group. I think the Vikings would like to bring back Danielle Hunter. I don't know why you wouldn't. But I think that they're not going to bring him back if they know that they can't bring Kirk back. Because obviously, if you bring back Kirk, then it's like, okay, we have a small Super Bowl window here. Let's bring back Danielle Hunter, who's an absolute stud, and go from there. Other than that, he is the star. I'll move on. For our linebackers, we got Devin White, Frankie Louvu, Josie Jewell, Patrick Queen, Isaiah Simmons, Jerome Baker, Jordan Brooks, Willie Gay, Bobby Wagner, Aziz Al-Shire, Jordan Hicks, Levante David. So I'll just start off with Levante David. He says he's not leaving Tampa Bay, so probably just means he'll take a hometown discount to stay. And then on the opposite end of that spectrum, we have his former teammate, probably, Devin White, who, last time I checked, still wants, like, top-end market money. He's not worth that. But we will see what happens. I think Patrick Queen has a decent chance to land with the Seahawks, because if you didn't notice, I named the two Seahawks starting linebackers for this year with Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner. And obviously Patrick Queen just came from that Mike Macdonald system. And when Mike Macdonald took over that defense, so did Patrick Queen. So that would obviously be a connection that could happen here. But it's strong at linebacker. It's fairly strong at linebacker, at least for the top end. Like Devin White, Louvu, Josie Jewell, Queen, Brooks are all like very solid starters in this league. Willie Gay, Bobby, like everyone I named here is like basically a solid starter and would start on almost any team in the league. The Dolphins also need some linebacker help because I listed one of our former linebackers. And I love someone like Aziz Al-Shire. That's someone who I wanted the Dolphins to target last year. He went to the Titans, and then because of that, we got David Long from the Titans. David Long, stud of a signing, great run stopper. Pairing him next to Al-Shire would be great. I think Al-Shire is going to come at a pretty relatively cheap cost too, so I would like that replacement. Now for the corners here, pretty good corner group. And the top of it being Stephon Gilmore, Darius Williams, Adoree Jackson, Kendall Fuller, Michael Davis, Jeff Okudah, C.J. Henderson, Steven Nelson, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Xavier Howard, Levi Wallace, Christian Fulton, Kenny Moore, and Dane Jackson. Obviously, there's obviously a cutoff. I think Darius Williams, Adoree Jackson, Kendall Fuller, and Gilly kind of in a tier of their own. Gilly probably in his own tier compared to those guys. Gilly's just probably going to be a mercenary for some team. He'll get probably. It's so tough to see, especially for a guy like Gilly who has obviously won his rings and he's good. He could ring chase and just be like, yeah, I'll show up for 15 mil a year and try to win a Super Bowl with you guys. Who knows? He's honestly my dream signing for the Dolphins. If the Dolphins are like, okay, we can just pay someone for 1 year. We got this money. Here's Stephon. Come over. Go play next to Jalen Ramsey. Let's have teams try to throw on us. That would be incredible. But yeah, the Jags cutting Darius Williams, still one of the best zone corners in the league. And obviously, that means that the Jags are totally shifting their defense here. Lots of teams are retooling. Lots of the teams that were trying to contend next season are in heavy retool mode. But yeah, good corner class, good mix of nickels, outside corners, vets, younger guys, strong corner class, and then we get to safeties. Xavier McKinney not tagged, one of the kind of shocked they didn't tag him because he's very good. Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, who we've already talked about. Micah Hyde, Geno Stone, Taylor Rapp, Cam Curl, Kevin Byard, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Eddie Jackson, Darnell Savage, Jaron Kearse, Tracy Walker, and Rayshawn Jenkins. It's a very strong defensive free agency, in my opinion. QB is stronger than it normally is with Kirk and Baker and actual starter level guys hitting the market, but defense, I can just go 10 deep on the top guys and I'd be confident with any of those guys starting for my team essentially. Would they start? No, because the Dolphins have very good people on them, but on average they'd be a starter across the NFL. But yeah, a couple of those vet safeties here. If the Giants don't bring back Xavier McKinney, that's awful for them and awful asset management if they don't. Quandre Diggs, still very solid. Blitz boy Jamal Adams. Geno Stone, who was a late round pick for the Ravens, who has really blossomed into kind of a ball hawking safety for them. I think that they're hoping that they can bring him back, but obviously they can't tag him when they tested tagging Justin Matabuke. The Ravens also have. There's a lot of teams retooling, and I guess we'll just off the head in my AFC, teams that have to really retool for the most part their identity. The Chiefs are cool. Chiefs are fine. They got what they need. But the Dolphins, heavy retooling. The Bengals, heavy retooling. The Ravens, heavy retooling. The Jags, I wouldn't really consider them, but they were supposed to be very good last year. But the Jags are heavily retooling. The Bills, to a certain extent, heavy retool. The Seahawks, heavy retool. Who else in the NFC? The Cowboys, heavy retool. The Eagles, heavy retool. I don't have to say heavy retool after all of those. Either way, a lot of the contending good teams from last year are going to have very different rosters overall from what we have seen over the last few years, which is very interesting that it's all kind of happening at once and not like, oh, it's just a handful of these contending teams from last year are kind of reshaping what they're doing. It's going to be a very competitive market in free agency. It is going to be incredibly silly to see what some of these GMs, now that they got that extra 30 million and spending money, to see what they end up doing. But yeah, that's kind of the free agency primer. I know I didn't really go into detail with a lot of the guys, but it's more just kind of giving like an overview of where the strengths are in free agency and who could be available. And next week, once these signings start happening, because Wednesday, so when the show drops next week, free agency will officially have begun. But we have that stupid tampering window. This is basically the start of free agency. So we'll get a lot of the deals done by then. And then I'll kind of break down, because there's no chance it's like, oh, Jadeveon Clowney to the Niners. Let's talk about that potential fit, which would be obviously an excellent fit as Nick Bosa, the pass rusher, and Clowney, good pass rusher, but excellent run stopper, would be honestly a dream fit for the Niners. But like, why talk about that unless like it actually happens? Yeah. So next week, obviously, once those guys sign, I will give a more detailed and how I see their role and how I like the signings and yada, 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 and all that stuff. But I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. I need to crack a window in here. Luckily, it did get a little less hot as the sun was setting. But if you have liked this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And until next time, peace.